Evening and welcome to the final of our webinars in our Winterage Webinar series. My name is Bridget Barry and I coordinate Farming for Nature. Farming for Nature was set up to inspire and encourage farmers that farm or wish to farm more for nature. And one of the ways we do this is each year we find exemplary farmers that are doing actions on their land for nature. These are our Farming for Nature ambassadors. And this series has been a great way to learn from the ambassadors, but also learn from researchers and experts what's going on in the research side of things, and then allowing the ambassadors to respond to that. But also for you in the crowd, that you're able to ask your questions, your pressing questions to the ambassadors and to the researcher tonight. And as we go along, I will facilitate any questions that are coming in. If anyone knows the answer to the questions, feel free to type in their answer as well. So I will kickstart the event in a minute, but just to say, if anyone misses this session or has to cut out early or knows anyone that might be interested or on any of the other previous sessions, they'll all be up on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. This one will be up in a few hours' time up on the YouTube channel, so feel free to share it. I will send it out to everyone that's been registered anyway. So on to tonight's event. We're delighted to welcome Áine Macken Walsh, Dr. Áine Macken Walsh from Teagasc, and then Rob Kennedy from Knocknarea Farm in Sligo, and Bronagh O'Rourke from the Burren in County Clare. We were supposed to have also Liam Gavin on the call tonight, but unfortunately he has a chest infection, so he's unable to join us at the last minute. But we're delighted to have the three that we have here, and I think it will be a really interesting night. It's the title of the event is adding value to your farm, maximizing on your ecological footprint. And so, Áine, you might just kickstart the event by I think you want to show a few slides and just introduce maybe your work, and then introduce the subject matter, please.
Thanks very much, Bridget. Yeah, delighted to be part of this evening. So the title, as you explained, Bridget, is Adding Value and Capitalising on Your Ecological Footprint. I'm sure many of the people here are interested in how to do that in a practical sense. So I'm just as really an introduction to the two farmers who are doing it in real life, and you'll be probably very interested in hearing from them and their experiences. I'm just going to give a very brief overview of some of the policies, perhaps, and the context from the research side that provides some background to the topic. So, we all know, I think, and farmers know it better than anybody else, that, being the lowest cost supplier of a commodity product often, may not work for everybody, and certainly may not work for a small or a mid-sized farmer who is competing with often very large producers and selling a commodity product over which the farmer has no control. So they're price takers, basically. But the alternative to that then is to differentiate the product, to charge a premium price for the product. But in order to do that, the product has to be made different from the ordinary commodity product on the shelf. And in such a way, the farmer will have more control, will be more of, will decide the price in advance based on the value of the product. So we know that. Often, whether it be in the United States or in Europe or anywhere, farmers who are somewhere in the middle are often very vulnerable because they're too small to compete at a large scale in the commodity markets, but also sometimes they mightn't be sufficiently different or alternative to sell their products as specialized products. Farmers in the Burren really mightn't have that difficulty, in a sense, when it comes to the potential for creating a different product for the market, because the Burren itself is so unique, is so well known, that the local imagery of the place and its identity can be used to make the products that are produced there and farmed there stand out in the market. But it's not as easy as that, as you will all agree. The good news is that I don't think there is a single study of consumers across Europe or anywhere else that would suggest that consumers and the people who buy food from the marketplace do not want more agriculturally sustainably produced products. So all of the data show that this is the most recent data from the Eurobarometer poll, show that 73% of all consumers, no matter what the income category is, do want food and want to purchase food where they have a greater awareness that the food has been produced in accordance with good environmental standards. So where does policy come into all of that? We know what the consumer wants. Really, policy now has greatly shifted in the new CAP and elsewhere to really emphasize the importance of food that is produced in accordance with good ecological standards, but also, paying more attention. Policy is nowadays to the importance of branding and labeling. So this is a new emphasis really that has come in with the Green Deal and associated policies, where there is a push to industry, the public, to come up with new and innovative ways to brand food so that farmers are rewarded and they profit from producing food in accordance with good environmental and ecological standards, and also that consumers are more empowered, that they know what they're buying. And if they're paying a premium, that they know what the premium is for. It's not just a picture on the label, it's actually underpinned by something tangible and something they can rely on. So this is just the Food Safety Authority picking up those discussions from Europe and bringing them into Irish conversations and discussions. And this was an interesting one. This focus group is meeting, European Commission focus group is meeting for the first time next month, but they're going to focus specifically on livestock production and how to differentiate meat products. So whether it be beef or lamb or any other type of meat in the marketplace, and come up with new innovative ways for branding the food. So it's all about really, in the Irish case, as adopted in Ireland, inspired by EU policy, is how to target the whole food chain and come up with innovative branding solutions. But there is an existing EU eco-label, and you might see this in some food products. And the story isn't always positive in the sense, because it is quite strict, and some might say deservedly so, and this is required, and the certification process is extremely stringent. The experience of some producers and other actors in the food chain would suggest. And I suppose many of us would be aware of the kind of stringent regulations and requirements, for instance, for organic food production. And it's not to suggest that these shouldn't be in place, because they must be, and they have to be reliable. Labels and brands and certifications must be reliable, but it's not going to cover absolutely everybody. And there are alternative ways to communicate to consumers the value of, say, traditional practices that are culturally meaningful, that are sensitive to local ecological conditions. So the full swathe of opportunities when it comes to branding and communicating, and thereby capitalize on your ecological footprint, which is the theme of this evening, that needn't just be pigeonholed into one strategy, such as the eco label, for instance. So it's all about building a food story, creating this story based on, as someone said, memory, romance, and trust, which is very important to people. It's about relationship value, people feeling that they can trust the food that they're buying and that they trust the producers of the food. But again, just as I said at the very beginning, and the two speakers who are doing it in practice in the real world will speak about later, it's not very easy to bring a product, brand it, process it, and sell it very successfully in the market at a premium price. There are lots of different things that are required to do that successfully. So I heard paperwork mentioned earlier, just as we met earlier on before this seminar started. There's lots of paperwork. There are those certification type processes. There's the challenge of really excellent marketing. So you really effectively communicate the value of your product and the production process to your consumer, et cetera, et cetera. I heard about deliveries to West Cork from the Burren. It's a significant operation, and it is not something that's extremely easy. People are often very, very passionate. The people who are doing it well now, they invest an incredible amount of work and are incredibly passionate about it. And it's not very possible for everybody, even though we would like to see so many more farmers entering into that marketplace where they receive a fair price and a price that reflects the contribution they make to the landscape in the marketplace. So we know that farmers are expert in farming, and farmers in the Burren certainly are. But where are all these skills? Where can they be found? Well, this goes back to our definition of farmers. And, you know, we do have to, when it comes to these types of enterprises and direct selling, sometimes we have to think a little bit beyond, say, the main farm operator or the holder, because he or she is often invested full-time in the farm. And we need to think about all of the other associated, maybe people in the family, often who have diverse skills, people within the community who could be collaborators. We need to think about, you know, possibly reinventing cooperatives so that they can bring those types of skills together and offer them to farmers who need them. To undertake all of these types of different services, it takes a lot of different mindsets, views, perspectives, tastes, form of expertise. And this is a cooperative structure that has been pioneered in the United States that attempts to just deliver those types of expertise to farmers. So the cooperative has them, but every farmer doesn't need to hire in all of these forms of expertise. A local cooperative could provide the expertise to farmers. This is a focus of a project I'm involved in currently called CoreNet. That's an EU project that's trying to bring practical solutions to farmers, but also to consumers, because they want a convenient place that they can come and buy products. And they want more of these products. So we have to find successful ways of doing that and practical ways of supporting it. But this is an interesting example. It's Sheridan's brown bread crackers that we took as a case study at one point, because it actually fits within the definition of a short food chain. But Sheridan's don't own any farms and they don't produce any wheat or buttermilk. What they do is they enter into alliances with farmers who do produce it. They also don't have an in-house designer to produce their packaging. They actually hire it in on a contract basis. And in fact, it was a designer based in London that developed this packaging and the branding, and they won a very prestigious award for it. So Sheridans don't have these elements in-house, but what they do is they contract it in, they coordinate it, yet they remain the owner of the product. Now, it's a different type of product, but if we can imagine a farmer who is incredibly busy and his or her family producing meat or another product on the farm, they often need to collaborate in a similar way. All of these little round spheres here represent a different person or type of skill that's brought in to make this product, to put this product on shelves. So I'll conclude by just saying, I don't think there's anywhere in the world that I could think of that has as much potential for this type of branding based on memory, trust, tradition, cultural identity. You know, it's often used it is used as an EU-wide inspiring example for sustainable production, but also it has broadened out into, you know, the connecting of people and place, etc., and so many other ancillary activities, and bringing in wider society to celebrate the skill and tradition in the Burren. But very much, I think there's an awful lot more. Hopefully, discussions this evening might inspire people to hopefully establish these type of collaborations. And this is just a quote from kind of a very influential paper about, well, what makes a farm resilient? And it's certainly the Burren has demonstrated as a farming system that has existed and persevered and endured for so long. Well, it is persistence. It's a continuation of what has been done in the past, but also adaptation. So that's it for me. Thanks, Bridget.
Brilliant. Thanks, Áine. If you just unshare your screen there for a second. Yeah, that's great. Thanks a million for that. It's really interesting and a great springboard, I think, for the conversation tonight. Just on your slideshow, if anyone's got any questions, please pop them into the chat box. But just really quickly, you know, that idea of cooperatives, what's the nearest we have to it in Ireland? Like, is it CSA or not? Or is there any version of that? You were saying the success story in America works.
There is no example of it in Ireland in the same format. Of course, there's community supported agriculture, but this is a model whereby farms are supported by a cooperative who provide them with the types of services that they need, transport, branding. Also in the US, they wouldn't regard each other as competitors. So say, for instance, regional Burren live meat products, then you'd have for instance, the Connemara Hill lamb, the Ring of Kerry quality lamb, and other, they would work together, but each with their own product identity, very much maintained. But they would actually collectively be supported by their parent or umbrella cooperative that provide them with expertise and services.
And what do you see as the barriers in Ireland to creating something similar?
Well, I think it will just, I suppose, people might view each other as competitors, but I haven't seen, that's a hypothetical reason. I haven't seen any evidence of that actually in the words or actions of any particular group. It's about people. People, I think, are very overworked, whether it be a farmer wondering, will he or she decide to sell their products and go to the hassle of getting it processed with absolutely no guarantee it will sell, a perishable product, you know, massive risks involved. It's hard to take that leap. And equally, a farmer who has taken the leap, or his or her family generally involved because they can't do it on their own, to take the leap then to cooperate further with another group, you need an awful lot of time and energy. And they're often, to be honest, I think quite burnt out and not in a position to take even further risks. So they need a lot of support, funding, and operational models that will come to their doorsteps and offer them services without them having to do all of the work in establishing something like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks, Sonia. Just because you've mentioned the Burren a lot tonight, so what I might do is I might start with Bronagh, because you are in the Burren and you do have a short chain because you're going straight to your customer. But Bronagh, you might just start for me explaining for the people in the audience that don't know your product, where you farm, what your system is, and what your product is, please.
Yeah, my husband and I are farming here in the Burren. We're very much in the centre of the Burren, so we're actually in the national park, but we're privately owned, so we're on the Galway border. So regionally, it's a really good place from sales point of view. So we're close to Galway City, Limerick City, and other places. So initially, when we started, I set up a website and sold online. So our product is called Burren Premium Beef. We sell exclusively online and into some restaurants as well. So we do basically everything ourselves. So we do, we have a butcher who slaughters and butchers the carcasses, and then it's hung there, and then my husband delivers it. I sell it. We're unique in that, obviously, being in the Burren, our animals are eating different type of grasses. So we're selling on a provenance basis rather than on an organic. Even though our farm is organic, there's a lot of bureaucracy in your butcher has to be organic as well, even though it doesn't make an ounce of difference to the cuts at the end. So, but we sell on the basis of our animals being out on the winterage of the Burren, which obviously they are, and then they have access to many different types of grasses. So the product does taste different. We have repeat customers all the time. I haven't had to advertise the product in 2 years. So it's repeat customer all the time. It's getting that relationship with the customer. My husband does all the deliveries. We found that if we relied on anybody else in any of those instances, that we've been let down and it's fallen through in a bad way. And our product is sold fresh. It's not frozen. So at the start, there was a challenge involved with getting all that meat sold within a very short time frame. And mince goes off quite quickly. So that's a huge thing. And people are always really surprised when we can actually do that. and sell it. But it's just worked out now that with the customer base that we have, that we're able to sell it directly to the market. And for me, it was coming from a place of nurture. So setting up the business came from me asking my husband, because I was frustrated with the product that I was buying for my family. And when I tried our mince, I really felt that actually this is something that people want. They want more local. They want a better quality product. So I think that when you do taste the product and you do realise how fresh, and you can see it in your hand. So sometimes for me, I wouldn't personally buy a frozen product. So I actually would like to see the marbling in my steak. I want to see the fat content when I look at the mince. So for me, that makes a difference. So when I sell to myself. So would I be happy to accept that beef box? You know, and we look at that all the time, and we look at our quality, we look at new things and innovative things we can do. So there's persistence, actually, when you mentioned that, Áine. That's a huge thing. My husband is fantastic. He does a lot of the hard manual end of things, and getting the cattle ready and bringing them to a stage where they're being sold on when we bring them to the butcher. So it's very important that each step is looked at, you know, from that point of view of quality. And our butcher is great. But that is an industry that's hard as well. And it's hard to get that person that will kill and butcher for you in the same place. So there's always obstacles. There's, you know, certain things with customers, and people are, you know, get it hard to sell product. We haven't found that as an obstacle, but I suppose persistence is the main thing, I think personally, to keep going through those really hard times when you're like, this is a really hard day. But every day is a new opportunity. And I think for us, as Áine said, the Burren can sell a product. So for me, it's provenance and taste over being organic or anything else. And we don't label our product organic. We're not allowed, because the butcher isn't organic. But I remember my husband saying, somebody had said to him at some point that it doesn't matter what it tastes like once it's organic. And for me, that's not true. For me, it really matters what the product tastes like. And we're always trying to look at the future and look at the next thing that could make a difference to us. So I'm very excited to having heard what Áine is talking about with that cohort thing, or cornet, whatever it was, because I do believe that we should be supported more. We should be doing co-ops. We also do farm tours, and when we have American visitors, they talk about buying meat online. So in America, there's an organization, they're called MOINK. It's MOINK. And this is regional areas of farmers, organic farmers, or different types of farmers that come together. And it's like a co-op. So you place your order and you get organic beef, lamb, or whatever. But they're all centrally based on a website, we'd say, and then it's collected and sent out from there. So I think that there is a good future in that. But farmers have to be part of that conversation. And sometimes my background wasn't farming at all. I worked off farm, and so did my husband. And I was kind of in sales and marketing. And I think sometimes when you don't know what is in front of you, a little bit of naivety can be a blessing, because I wasn't afraid. I said, well, what's it going to cost? We're setting up a website. We're killing a heifer. We might have a full freezer for 2 years, but if we don't sell it, we can freeze it and use it ourselves. But thankfully that didn't happen. Yes, and everything else is going really well to this point. So touch wood that it continues, and we continue to grow, as I have really good plans for the next 2 years. So fingers crossed.
I look forward to hearing. It was an interesting point what Áine said, is that, you know, very often people are flat to the wind really with all the different kind of aspects. It's not just growing the product, it's marketing it, it's branding it. It does help that obviously that you've come from sales, but do you find that you've kind of taken on, by taking out the middleman, you're taking on a whole skill set that was, you know, all consuming, or is it manageable?
I'm the type of person that I'm only happy when I'm busy with 10 different hats on. So I love change and building things all the time. So if I don't know about something, like every winter I take on some kind of course. So it was a nice challenge for me to try and get into those different areas that I didn't know about. I will definitely agree on the point about boot work. It's my least favorite thing. And filling out forms for grants or to get a mentor for certain things. I think a lot of the Leos and certain things like that can be very form heavy. So if you have a really good idea, more than likely, you're going to just plow ahead yourself, because it's actually really off-putting to be told that you have to fill out 10 forms to explain an idea to somebody. So yeah, I tend not to explain as much about what the future holds or what I want to do, because it's come back to bite me a few times already.
Fair enough. I wouldn't ask you. Just really quickly before we move on, and don't feel that you have to actually kind of name numbers, but is it financially worth it for you to take out the middleman and to go straight to your customer with all the many hats that you do have to wear and different ideas? And you were saying you have farm tours come on your land and you have to do that as well. You know, is it worth it for both the heart and the pocket, I suppose?
Well, the heart's completely invested in it. So it's like being married to the job. So I'm not a quitter, and my husband's a great man to motivate me every day in different ways. If I'm finding something difficult, we'll find a way around it that we'll both pitch in. Is it worth it? For me, it's a bit of a legacy thing. I would love to, hopefully the kids might want to take over. They're quite young at the moment, but if we could build something really significant that they have an interest in, and still leave a gentle footprint, that we establish something in the kindest way to nature that we possibly could, and educate people a bit more in the biodiversity of the area and in how we can eat better for ourselves and our family. I think that would be a really good thing. But no, I wouldn't see that as a big challenge. I would see my goal in it is to, please God, help other people realise that it's actually not that difficult. I was at a really good empowerment kind of talk last week with Karen Weeks. She sailed a boat around the Atlantic, and I just thought, if I can do it, she says, you can do it. And I honestly think that there's so many things that we're really capable of. And it's just actually being brave enough to say, well, I'm going to try it anyway. If it fails, it fails, and that's good enough. But I'll educate myself. There's nothing worse than trying it without having some kind of knowledge in the back of it. And there are, like I found with one of the things that I say in most things that I do, even on the farm tours, I will say I'm a Farming for Nature ambassador, because there's trust in that. So we talk about the national park because we're there. Cahill's family have been here for 5 generations. I'm learning as I go. I wouldn't call myself a farmer yet. I'm trying, but I'm not always standing in the right gap. But I will make a big effort, and I trained as a conservation ranger. So I think continuous education and using other people as a sounding board. Like, we're blessed here. Brendan Dunford has been so good and so inspiring since I came here. So we knew what we wanted to do. There's ways to do it. But when you reach out to other people, I think there's definitely hope out there. And there's definitely a lot of people that are probably thinking the same way you are, but you don't realise it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That kind of comes back to Áine's point of, like, are you competitors or are you potential partners? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's and
actually, that's another very good point, that I grew up in a pub, and my father always said that if this end of town is busy, all the pubs will be busy. So you have to try and encourage that. So I'd be very much on for that. I'm part of the Burren Ecotourism Network, which promotes other businesses in the area. And I totally believe that people never come or buy one single thing. If they're thinking about better quality meat, then they're thinking about better quality veg as well. And they're thinking about raw milk, and they're already on that. So I would tend to always slip into the conversation or something that I found beneficial, you know. So I think trust is a huge thing, and likability. So if they like you, like we learned a huge amount from doing markets. We started at Knocknarea Farmers Market, and we went to the Milk Market and Ballyvaughan, and now we're not doing markets. But I actually miss that chat with the customer as well. So I have people that still ring me up and will ask me for a few things because maybe they don't want a box, but they're local and they know I'll give it to them. So we still have those customers. So I think that that's nice as well. The personal touch for us will never go. you know, and that's really important, where some things in the brand might get bigger, but some things will just, they won't change.
That's really interesting. And I think probably there's an earlier research in that quite a few of our farmers have said, you know, they've pulled back from farmers markets as time consuming, but actually the value, the social value of the farmers markets are very important. They might not financially be as important, but the actual kind of interaction directly with your customer. So moving on to Rob there in County Sligo. Rob, you might just, you can take yourself off mute there, and you might just tell us about your farm, your farming system, and what you guys are doing up there, yourself and Sean.
Yeah, myself and Sean, yeah, it's 4th year now running the farm, and traditionally, or initially, it was a traditional suckler farm. Sean's dad kind of ran with kind of supporting through his kind of off-farm income, and he gave us a lucky chance to give it a crack and kind of run the farm. And we decided to run, we have 25 acres and then 20 acres rented, and we're running a market garden, pastured poultry, and grass-fed beef enterprises. So everything is pretty well, I'd say 80% of everything is sold through a farm shop on site that we set up pretty much straight away. We initially started out with a little honesty box selling veg and eggs and stuff like that, and through a little cash box, and local people got used to it. And then we quickly realized we need to have a better setup to refrigerate things, and a better payment system for people, and make it more convenient. So we put up a makeshift shed and got going, and we sell. Yeah, we do pretty much everything. We sell to other restaurants and cafes as well. We initially started out to get off the ground with a CSA model for the veg and eggs, which is great cash flow at the start. But then, yeah, you can't beat the farm shop for us, because it's literally, people can see where the food is being grown, how the animals are being treated, and they can come in and talk to me and Sean, which is a massive factor. So we do the odd farm tour every now and then, and also just our customers come in and have a chat to us, and we tell them about our systems. Everything is like organically fed and natural, no chemical free farm. And when people can see it, it's just a no-brainer for them. They can see the freshness. It's literally just harvested there a couple of hours before. Our marketing, mainly through social media, to be honest. We kind of got a bit out of our shyness and got onto Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and started making videos about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve in our context. That was a difficult part to overcome, because we're quite shy by nature, and but you get used to it, and then people buy into the story. They want to try and support you. We're located very well for our farm shop, so we're probably 2-3 minutes from Strandhill village, just up the road. So people, yeah, it's very convenient, and then that's a big factor for the farm shop. It has to be easy to get to, because if it was in the back end of nowhere, it'd be tricky for it to work, because. And like that with the cooperative movement, I think the cooperative idea is a great idea. But you'd have to make it convenient for people to get the product, whether it's delivered or whether it's at a certain time or location. So yeah, people, we're supporting 2 families off it now, and people are, yeah, loving the veg, loving the eggs. They're just going mad for it. Yeah. What else can I say?
2 questions. One is when you mentioned, you know, kind of how busy farmers are. You know, there's 2 of you, but there's 2 families you're supporting, and you mentioned to me earlier before we came on the call that you're not manning the shop, because I assume you don't have time. You're kind of in the fields or whatever, is it? Or
oh yeah,
yeah.
We
so
have
do you get days off?
Service.
I mean, is it? Do you find are you flat out 7 days a week?
Yeah, we've taken on 2 employees this last year, which was amazing. But we have basically a self-service farm shop, and it's an iPad system in there with Square setup. Very easy to work off, like a point of sale system that people can type their items, much like you see in a big supermarket checkout system like SuperValu or whatever. And they tot up their items and then off they go. There's a huge amount of trust from us, people, you know, not stealing stuff, because we do take on other products to get a more full shop experience. Like we get bread from the guys at Drumanilra, and we get or raw milk from Glombuie, and we get cheese off Leitrim Hill Creamery, and so we take in our idea is to have everyone come to the shop as a one-stop shop, really, and then all our products are on top of that. But there's a huge amount of trust there. But all of our customers, they keep an eye out for us as well, and they kind of if it hadn't looked a bit funny, like we've had one or two little issues, but we have cameras there. We can always check the stock on the iPad system. We do have a cash box, but we don't have the change box there anymore. We just have the tap card system. And initially I was skeptical. I thought, our customer base is probably between maybe mid-30s to, into retirement age. And the older customers, I thought, maybe it's not possible, but actually they were fine, they were totally grand working out the little iPad and that. And it's, a huge time saver for me and Sean, because we're just, like you said, it's a multifaceted approach to running our farm. It's multiple enterprise and kids. So to have someone shopping, looking at the farm, they can see their stuff and they can pop on in whenever they want. So we're open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day of the year. So we don't actually close the shop really ever, which is great, because there's always a bit of income coming in. And obviously it slows down a lot in the winter with the weather, just maybe the roads get bad, and then but our growing kind of slows down a lot then too. Now I would like, going back to what Bronagh said about the markets, it is that customer interaction is very important. So we do open days, we do farm tours, and then if we're running around the market garden and one of the customers comes over, we try and give them a bit of time, because they're the heart of the farm. They're making it all work. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. And when you also mentioned earlier about the kind of the challenges of working with perishables, I mean, have you, because you're open every day, you're not throwing, like, do you find that you have to throw stuff out much, or you just you've kind of nailed it down to the amount that your customer wants and that what you're producing fits it? Demand?
That took a few years to we started out within the market garden anyway. We started out with 27 different crops, and that was just way too much. So we pulled back down to 18 crops now, and then we buy in off other local producers and other local organic farms that, we don't have the scale to produce, like a lot of brassicas and stuff like that, like cabbages and cauliflowers. It just doesn't make sense at our scale. We're only an acre and a half of a market garden, and then 300 hens and 12 bullocks. So it's not like huge scale, but you can always find ways, and we kind of focus mainly on leafy greens, and we have kind of refrigerators in place now. We've set up kind of repeat customers for a lot of item goods. And one other thing that I should mention actually is we do go into supermarkets, and that's been a huge eye opener, actually, going in for the leafy greens in particular, because the consistency and the convenience for your everyday customer, they can't get everything in our shop. So we tend to stock up super values and centres as well. And that's been really, really good during the winter months when the weather kind of dips and the farm shop gets a bit slower. And you can just rely on it, because people are going to go to the supermarket. They need to get their detergents, and they need to get, other bits and bobs that we can't just do, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's interesting. And Rob, just quickly there, you say you're only going 4 years, and we're delighted to include you this year as one of our Farming for Nature ambassadors. But what have been the biggest challenges on this journey for you guys? Or what are your biggest learning curves? If someone was starting out, what would you kind of say? Avoid.
Understanding cash flow. That would be the biggest one, because particularly at the start of these enterprises, there's a huge outgoing of cash at the start of the year, and mistakenly, me and Sean put in our own money at the start to get going, which was good because we were in deep and we had to do it. But it meant that our cash flow ideas weren't right there. If I was to start again, I would project the cash flow over the year or the first 2 years to make sure you have an idea of what's going to happen, and you'll always surpass it. Generally, that's what we ended up doing anyway. But if to have tighter figures at the start to understand that, okay, we can start paying ourselves now. And the first 2 years were really tight. We didn't. We were just about making it work in terms of paying ourselves. And then we got momentum. All the overheads became, back in. There were more investments then. And what else? Yeah, taking on people actually. I think taking on employees is amazing. Like I would have, obviously it's a cash flow thing again, but having employees now after in our 4th year is just a total game changer. Like me and Sean have kids now, and you just you can't let them suffer either. You can work all day long, but having someone coming in to rely on and actually paying them means a world of difference because they're motivated, they're getting rewarded for the work they're doing, and we can kind of plan our week way more easily than what we were doing because it was like long hours at the start, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
So are you happy that you've got a really, it's quite successful business towards the end, but like, are you really happy you've taken out the middleman? I mean, you know, you could be popping it
Oh
all in a
yeah.
truck and it's all going off to Super Value in one van, and that you guys can just stay on your farm. Or are you kind of happy that you were taking it all the way through to your customer?
Yeah, it's a good buzz. Like, I mean, it's a lovely feeling knowing that people, you know, your customers, like we get to know people straight off the bat. You know that most of our food is consumed within 10 kilometers, really. It doesn't go any further than that. And I like the problem solving aspect of being totally engrossed in maybe running the business side, running the pasture poultry, running the market garden. And you kind of, every day is a new challenge, but the problem solving side of it never makes it, you're always interested. You're always like, right, let's try and tucker up to this problem today. And myself and Sean sit down and try and figure out how we're going to move forward and make it work. There isn't anything that the social media side of thing is hard. I definitely, it's tricky when you don't have the confidence sometimes to be all flashy and get your name out there, but you get over that, and that's just the way it is. It's just an amazing tool to get farmers who are in the middle of nowhere or just starting out to get free advertising out there, and people love people are on their phones now, so getting the story out there is like so easy now if you're not too shy. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. If anyone has any questions for Áine, Rob, or Bronagh, please feel free to pop them in the chat box. Áine, I might just ask you a quick question. If you're yeah, brilliant. Where do you feel the support is at a government level for this type of farming, where the kind of the shortened food chain and that farmers are getting direct to their customers? Do you feel that policy or funding or grants, is it moving towards supporting it more? Do you think there's options out there for people where they can go and get support for it?
Yes, definitely. There was a new scheme announced about a month ago for short food chains by the department. There's just no question about the significant policy emphasis on short food chains and these types of initiatives at EU level. So there's no doubt that Irish policy will reflect that, and it will reflect it to a greater extent as time in the future. So I think it's so inspiring to hear of the stories of producers who have taken the plunge, and Bronagh says she doesn't find it hard, and that's really admirable. But we need to, at the moment it's dominated by pioneers who've had the courage and who've gone out of their comfort zones, like Rob has described. And sometimes farmers, they enjoy farming, being on the land. It's hardly a very a job where they're meeting people all the time and having to market their food and develop narratives to explain the food and the importance of it. And they do need support and collaborations to make it more accessible to everybody, and to everybody who wants to become involved. It's not everybody who will be able to do all of that themselves in the future, and we can't just rely on a small pool of people to produce food in this way. It is the only way of achieving food security, ecological integrity, and to have those features of sustainable food production recognized and visible in the marketplace. So you know, there's absolutely no really form of policy that would refute that, because it's just simply in black and white, and it's universally accepted now that this is small scale food production. It's not necessarily very small scale either, but this type of food production, even at a larger scale or consolidated involving different producers, is will be and must be a very permanent and more visible and more frequent feature of food production systems.
Yeah, because it was interesting what Rob was saying about, you know, just that initial capital or something, like whether there's a starter capital fund or, you know, something that can allow people take the risk, you know, because it is a massive risk. And you do, and as Bronagh says, you know, there's lots of courses and stuff that people can take and be involved in, and, you know, and help, but it's taking the time and I suppose knowing that others are doing it is a really important part of that journey as well.
I think what you're talking about, having like mentors or someone who actually takes on that paperwork for farmers would be a great idea, because there is funding out there. There definitely is. Like, we tried it with Leo and local enterprise office and that, and then I'm not great with that kind of. I don't have the patience to sit down. I'm more of like a, come on, let's go. But I know several farmers who be in our boots, that if they had someone to bounce the paperwork off, or who was really good at that, who loves that, that'd be, oh my God, I'd be all over it. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Bronagh, how about you? Do you find that the support is there if you need it, like that there's angles, there's people to go to in the Burren? You're lucky and different in the Burren that there has been Burren Life program, obviously. That's been very useful.
The Burren Life was fantastic. It's just that when we lost that now, you know, you don't want to feel like you're approaching somebody and it's not their job to help you, you know, like everybody's time is, you know, busy, and we're all kind of interested in our own thing. I have things that I'm working on, and I really agree with Rob. It's so hard when you're told with Leos and things like that they want you to fill out 10 forms before somebody will help you. I think it needs to be a more collaborative thing, and they will sit down and meet you, and you're actually talking to a person and they see the areas which you need help in. Because I know when I started initially, there was mentors for certain things, and we were quite busy with tourism at the time, and you don't have time to kind of write what they want you to write to get to the next step. And so, you know, then you're kind of losing out on certain things. But I think they need to look at, is the person that's going to be your mentor, have they set up a business? So do they understand the challenges that you're kind of coming up against? Like, I'm PR, I'm marketing, I'm accounting, I'm all those things. So, you know, to say, like, I do southern stuff for Fall to Ireland and that as well. And like, there's nobody else doing the stuff that they want me to do, and the farming has to be done and the other things. So for people to understand that the one person is wearing all the hats, you know, would be great. To be honest, we haven't got any money either on grants or anything like that. We've done our own thing. Please God, that will change. There does seem to be a lot of talk recently about different things helping, and as Áine said, with the short food chains, grants and different things like that, please God. But in all honesty, I don't know, because I know if I had an idea and I want to work on something, it doesn't happen quick enough to hit the next season. You know, if you start filling out everything, you could be 2 years waiting to set up a shop or to do what the next step was, where, you know, in real time, you can get that done in 6 weeks. So, yeah.
And tell me, Bronagh, for you, if you were to go about advising a farmer that's just setting out, like, you know, 5 steps to take when they're looking to go into this shorter food chain and market their product themselves, and, you know, where would you suggest that they start?
I would go straight to your local farmers market, because honestly, the contacts we made in that have made it possible. They kind of did themselves out of a job, really, because now we don't have to do them because of the contacts we made through doing that. It was a brilliant first step. you're talking to your customer, you're understanding what they want really far better. Like initially when we started, it was COVID, so it was a website. So you really were going into it blind, but haven't had the feedback. And like every week I knew what cuts certain customers wanted. I knew who might be possible to get them to buy a box. They might upgrade to more things for their family. So the amount of learning that we did through the farmers markets was invaluable for everything else.
Brilliant. And Rob, just coming to you, if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat box. Rob, just coming to you, where you know you've been going only 4 years, where would you see yourself, you know, hopefully in another 4 or 5 or 10 years? How is your business growing, or are you quite happy with where it's at?
I'd say to have more of an ecological impact, we'd love to take on more land. We've rented, or through the help of Sean's dad, we've rented an extra 20 acres, the management of that, but it would be taking on more land to have more benefit on pasture that we can do with cattle. I'd say that's where we would scale up, because we have the demand there for our beef quite easily. We're only finishing 6 animals a year, so we could definitely, I think we could double that very quickly. In terms of the finances, like, we're not aiming to be very wealthy. We'd love to take on more employees to support more people who are interested in farming. We're both taking about 40,000 euros each now at the moment. And, you know, that's with the current way things, the economy is, that's working out, but we might grow that a little bit and then, you know, invest more back into the farm. I would say a big part of our focus would be on maybe making the farm shop more of a one-stop destination, taking in other producers, more variety for people, because it's the convenience for people to go to one place, and that's what brings people to the shop more and more. It's like we added on the bread, you added on the milk, then people really started to really pull in, you know. So I'd say that, and then I love the sound of the cooperative. I think the cooperative for farmers that are starting off, if you can get people to buy into the cooperative movement and consumers to buy into it, to pick up at a certain location or time, I'd love to get part of a cooperative, because there's certain times of the year that you have produce to move and you need to move it fast, and it would really work. And especially for people starting out, you could possibly, I know in Scandinavia they have Rico rings, which are a similar enough model where you pre-sell all your items and then you pick it up at a certain location, but it didn't seem to stick here in Ireland. Whether the people aren't used to maybe foreseeing what they want to buy every day, or whether they're buying in bulk or not buying in bulk, you kind of need to educate the consumer to maybe buy in for 2 weeks instead of 2 days. So I'd say, yeah, I went off topic there, but I just wanted to get, the cooperative is a great idea for a lot of farmers that don't. Our location for the farm shop is very specific, and there's like a fairly wealthy population in Strandhill, so the prices, people aren't too shy to the prices. So there have to be some sort of, maybe for farmers in more rural areas, some sort of help there as well to get food to people, because they probably wouldn't be able to charge what we charge because of our location. That's just a matter of just the way it is, and that's probably why we work the way we do.
Yeah, interesting. And
what's your top 5 products?
Okay.
What's that?
What's your top 5 sellers?
Salad, eggs, bread, and potatoes. Good potatoes. Is that 4? And then let me see. I think there's another one. Tomatoes. Yeah, cherry tomatoes in the summertime. They're definitely our best sellers. But the eggs and the salad they're by far the most. And the raw milk is something that it's getting really, really popular. I would say, like, people starting out, if you could do the 7 days a week milking, it would be well worth it. It's a huge demand for it.
It's interesting. So I met someone recently, and they were selling vegetables in an honesty box, but they were saying when they got the hens in, it made such a difference because people came every day to get their eggs. So they didn't mind if, you only had 5 turnips or you had 28 carrots, you know, that they were coming for their eggs anyway. So is that kind of, it was more of a consistent, they knew what they were getting, but then everything else was a bonus. And so their customer base built based on the fact that they had eggs that were there every day, you know. So that
That's
was,
exactly,
and that sounds like your salad and your eggs, so your
yeah,
kind
that's exactly what we started out with, was 300 hens and a couple of polytunnels, and we just went for it. And yeah, it's getting a product that people consume every day, like the milk, like the eggs, like the bread, like the salad, like the beef.
of.
So it's, yeah, no, definitely, and it's cash flow too. Actually, starting up those enterprises, an egg a day, you're getting 50 cent an egg or what have you. So you're straight off. You're not really holding. And starting up an enterprise with beef is a little bit more tricky, as probably most people know, because you're holding stock. But if you're getting going with hens, you get your hens in, you pay for the first round of feed, you have eggs coming through, and you're off and going. So it's an amazing. And market garden is similar enough, to be honest, with leafy greens. Yeah.
And when you're just finishing up with you there, what do you think success looks like in this area? Like what would you like to see in 10 years' time if you had a crystal ball?
Yeah, well, success would look like, you know, on the face of it, where people in every part of society could easily access food that's produced in accordance with good ecological standards by Irish family farms. The branding mechanisms shouldn't be too restrictive. We should be cautious about the emergence of labels that producers will find very restrictive and that will not serve the interests of the public, who just want, you know, an authentic product from an Irish family farm. You know, the best way of knowing that is not buying a product, say in a supermarket, that has a really good label and is organic, and, you know, but still the person has no idea really about where it comes from and the culture in which it's produced and the extent to which that community or that family farm is committed to the local area and intends to stay there, you know. That it's not just a transient food product that you pay for the fancy label that mightn't be there, and it's replaced by something else the following week. So people want that sense of permanence and connection. And that bridge between the consumer and the producer has to be authentic. Not because, you know, because you have a sense of familiarity and education and greater appreciation of the processes of food production. So the education element that you mentioned is very, very important. But I think labeling in that regard, if it's done very well and diversely, and not in a way that constrains everybody, will also have the effect of educating people, because they'll say, what's that about and what's that food story? And you mentioned QR codes for payment, but QR codes can also be scanned to tell a story, and just overall a greater connection. And more accessible, and that we'll see way more farmers getting a fair price for their products, that they're not price takers anymore, which is not a sustainable situation.
Yeah, interesting. I saw something in England about 6 months ago, butterfly beef. I don't know, was it Tesco's or something? And I just thought, but it was quite interesting. Basically, it was saying we can guarantee these cows have been running around in fields of butterflies, basically. And but it was so clear and clean that whether it was true or not, but it was a, you know, it was a good marketing ploy. Anyway, I think we're coming to the end of it. It's actually one of the first webinars I've ever been on. There's been no questions, which I assume means that everyone has done such a good job on answering all the questions as we've gone along. So thank you so much to all my speakers. Thank you, Áine Macken Walsh, Rob Kennedy, and Bronagh O'Rourke. And for anyone in the crowd, thanks very much for joining us. Just to let you know, like I said, this will be up on our YouTube channel, so people can listen to it in their tractor or their Jeep, or you can forward it on to anyone. Also, if anyone is interested, there is the Farming for Nature gathering this Saturday in Kinvara in County Galway. So it's a gathering of farmers like Rob and Bronagh, and there's tickets are still open. It's 25 euros for the day, so do come and join us. And then that will be followed by the cattle drive as part of the Burren Winterage Weekend on Sunday. Otherwise, we'll see you again soon. I'll let you know when there's more Q&As on. Thanks very much to my speakers. Great job. It was really interesting. Good evening.